And now, coming to you live from the City of Angels, Los Angeles, California, it's the Sheena Metal Experience with your host, Sheena Metal, only on KGRA Digital Broadcasting.
Hi, and welcome to the Sheena Metal Experience on KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. I'm your host, Sheena Metal. I'm a psychic medium. I'm an energetic healer. I'm an interfaith minister. I'm a 29-year talk radio host in Los Angeles and beyond. I'm a creative and a performing artist. And I come to you live from my home in Southern California every Friday at 3 o'clock Pacific time. This show is about spirituality. It's about creativity. It's about humanity. It's about passion. It's about service. It's about becoming and then maintaining your best you in this big, beautiful world. And then the most important part, inspiring others to do the same. And every week on the show, it may be my show, but it's without a doubt and always your experience. My guest today is a wonderful spiritual being, a shamanic healer, and a very good friend. She's been on many of my shows many, many times. It's an honor to have her here. The wonderful Rebecca Haywood is here. How are you, my friend? It's good to see you.
Oh, I'm doing well. It's so good to be back here with you.
I know. Isn't it exciting? Everything's new and everything now is done from my little house at the beach. So that's how we do everything. I tease my friend all the time. I have a friend who used to live at Hollywood and Highland. And he used to always say, when I'm 55, I'm getting rid of my apartment and I'm going to move to Seal Beach and go live at Leisure World. And I would think, oh my God, what a scary old man thing to do. But then when I turned 55, I moved back to the beach, and I don't live in a senior community, but where I live is so quiet, it might as well be. And I'm like, oh God, I kind of did the thing I laughed at him for doing at the exact same time. So that's, and he wound up leaving that place and moving to Long Beach, but he lives right in the middle of the city and I live here in the boondocks. So I guess I should be careful about what you laugh at, because that could become your life.
Well, but how much do you love it? That's the question.
Oh, I love it so much. I love how much I can see the moon and the stars, and the fact that I'm in this, I love my hometown of Huntington Beach a lot, but I'm in this neat little pocket where nothing seems to touch me. Like there's no noise and there's no traffic. And the other day I saw my plus 3 cars on the street at the same time driving. And I thought, oh my God, that's like a traffic jam in my neighborhood, because you never see any cars. I get out of my car at night to go in my house. There's not a car on the street. It's just, it's a different way to live. And I got to tell you, COVID really taught me that I needed that break.
Yeah. And
that I need to spend more time inside of myself and less time always being out amongst everyone, and trying to find that balance now that we're post-COVID. I think we're all going through, I mean, is that something you're going through too, is trying to find that balance of when it's you time and when it is time to get out amongst people, because as healers, it's important we do both of those things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's, and being in the city as well, that nervous system needs that rest, needs that extra sort of reset.
Yeah.
And as a healer, I spend a lot of time alone, and I'm very, I don't want to say picky, but kind of picky about, I'm selective, let's say. I'm selective about, my tribe. As you know, I have a very small circle, so there's certain energies that are asking me to work and certain energies that just want me to play with them. So those are the ones I spend my free time in, but it's all free. It's all free time.
Yeah. I mean, I saw that with my mom, because my mom, a Scorpio like you, frankly spent a lot of time by herself, and it was almost painful for her sometimes to be out amongst great groups of people, because she was such an empath and she sucked in so much from others, and nobody taught her how to filter that. We grew up in a time where there's books you can read and there are classes you go to, but she had none of that. So she just alienated. That was how she got away from it. She used to pull a blanket up over her in her chair and say, I'm going away now. That would be how she would isolate. so I think I overcorrected because I didn't want to wind up isolating, and I made myself go out amongst people and I loved it. But, there was a time where I would do 3 hours of radio and then I would have 5 hours of social engagements afterwards. And I'd be lucky if I was home one afternoon a week. And I think when COVID hit, I hadn't been home that much since I was probably in the 8th grade. And it made me really realize that I was missing out by not having time in my home.
Yeah.
And that the kind of chaotic environment of my home was reflective in the fact that I was never there. So life is kind of different now. And I live with this. I mean, all my cats have been beautiful, but when my cat Molly passed, I said I would never have another one. And then my girlfriend and I fostered this litter, and this little 3-day-old baby came, and I held him for 5 seconds and went, "Oh yeah, you're mine." And so he and I kind of like live here in this really kind of Zen place we've created. And man, I like being in my home. And thanks to COVID now, all my shows came to my home, so I can do as much TV and radio as I want and not have to leave my house. So isn't the world a beautiful place now?
It sure is. It sure is. And I love that for you with the energy of your mother there.
Oh yeah.
I know you've been dreaming that for quite some time. Ever since I met you, you've been dreaming of moving back in.
Yeah. Yes. And this was thought it was going to be so sad. And in a way, it's melancholy, but mostly it's inspiring to be here. Like right now, where my tripod is this is her desk. I sit at her desk and do all my shows. Yeah. And that's kind of an amazing energy to be around all of her stuff. And I was going to I always said, if I ever move in that house, I'm getting rid of all the furniture. I'm getting all the furniture I want. But then when I moved in, I was like, well, it's just temporary till the remodel. And then I thought, I grew up with this stuff. I love this stuff. So it's really been an interesting exercise in coming home. And, don't never negate the importance of going home and sort of making peace with everything you need to make peace with. It's been quite a journey, and I still have my place in the city. And will I at some point probably live both places? Sure. But right now I feel like this place and this space needs me. I feel like this town needs me. And because there's not a lot of people that do what we do down here. I don't know. I just live day to day and allow spirit to tell me where I'm going next. And right now they tell me, whoa, you're right where you are. It's good. I mean, how about you? Do you make a lot of plans, or do you just sort of let spirit dictate to you where what's the next step is?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not a planner. I'm not a planner. And my friends sort of lament that, but yeah, for me, it's following my heart, following the feeling in the moment, and day by day. So, although it's lovely to make plans. It's lovely to have little treats for yourself in your schedule that you get to look forward to. So, as I've sort of come out of my my cave, my shaman cave.
Yeah.
You know where I used to live here in LA, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
I thought
it was a little scary. It was a little scary.
Yeah, it was quite the refuge and sanctuary, and not a huge difference for me from living in the mountains of Idaho, which
Right.
Spirit told me, come to Babylon, be amongst the people. And what did I do?
Right. You found Idaho.
Yeah.
You found a little piece of Idaho in the middle of Los Angeles.
Well, a little piece of Mexico, really. I mean, wow,
right.
That place, the chapel dedicated to Guadalupe. I mean, it was,
which is beautiful.
It was a perfect womb space for me. And now, this is an interesting conversation to have, because now I've moved to, mid-city area, and there's helicopters going over instead of owls. What I mean?
Right. I kind of prefer owls, though, although I do like helicopters and planes. I do like owls. Yeah. That's one thing that's different about my bubble is when I lived here as a kid, planes didn't even go overhead here. But now that I think Long Beach Airport has become more passenger friendly, it used to just be more for like FedEx planes and whatnot. Now planes fly overhead. So it's a little bit of civilization, which is nice.
Yeah.
Because otherwise all you see is coyotes and and herons walking up and down the street, which you never quite get used to the herons walking up and down the street. That's pretty fantastic. Because after all, it is their space and we moved into it. And when they walk up and down the street with their big wingspan, they let you know, like, I'm letting you live in my neighborhood. So be nice. But yeah, I think it's great that you're here, because this is where we need your healing right now. And sometimes I think we go where we're called, right? Where our service is next.
Yeah.
And this is where yours is. And it's, even though it's hard sometimes, and there's sometimes you probably wish you could just be in Idaho with the nothing. It is important that we listen to that inner voice and we go where we're called, right? Because that's part of our life path too, is to do the things that we're being called to do and to fulfill those contracts.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I joke that shaman shit for the world, you know. So it's, you know, a lot of these choices, I mean, of course, we always have choice. We have free will no matter what.
Sure.
And, yeah, sometimes I do. I feel like my life is not my own, you know, even the men I date. You know?
I don't even want my life to be my own. Have I just totally gone off the deep end? I'm so happy just letting spirit tell me what the next move is. And I've never felt better since I sort of relinquished that power to spirit and stopped trying to throw myself on a closed door all the time. So I'm perfectly happy just to wait for the next message and then off I go. Sometimes I stop and say, what? I'm supposed to do that? And I kind of laugh, but I still say yes. And it's always the right decision, right? I mean, I feel like they're such better decision makers than I was, because it seems like so many more right decisions are being made since I stopped trying to fight the flow.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, you know, I mean, we're talking about our life not being our own, and that's true to a degree. But the thing is that spirit takes care of her servants, you know, like
yes,
always. So it's never going to be something that is going to harm you, the healer, because then what kind of service do you bring? Right.
Right.
You know,
right. We're always being taken care of, but you have to trust that. And I think that's one of the hardest things is you have to trust that you're being taken care of.
Yes. Yeah. Because you don't get to see the destination, you know.
Right.
Like reason plans out a journey and it starts with the destination, and then we find out or figure out how we're getting there, the most efficient path, you know. But spirit, you know, you're not traveling in a straight line. You don't know where you're going.
No.
And so absolutely, it's this beautiful constant free fall, you know.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite poems I wrote, gosh, back in like 2010 maybe, and it's, you know, one of the lines is, surrender does not look to where she might land, but whispers to infinity sweet nothings, you know. And
absolutely,
because we just, you get comfortable in it, and you almost crave that. The known feels small and constricting and just kind of boring to already know where we're going. Like, well, shoot.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And you have to trust the process of the surrender. And like you said in your poem, not surrender because you think it's going to bring you a certain outcome or a certain destination, but just surrender because you don't know what the outcome is going to be. And that's okay. And you just trust that you're being taken care of. I mean, I think that is so important. And even trusting that the right people are getting thrown to you, not only in the sense of your tribe, but in the sense of your clients. And then also trusting when spirit tells you it's time to move away from somebody, that you got to go, that it's time to move away, and just continue to listen, right? I think that as human beings, we're raised like, don't listen to anybody, just do your own thing. You decide your destiny, just push and push and push till you make it happen, which is funny because all of those things are so opposite to what spirit teaches us, which is all about release and surrender and let go and accept, and all of those words that are not part of what we're raised as humans to be, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, there's a beauty and a purpose to, you know, setting an intention, right? We set an intention at the beginning of a healing, right? We have an intention. And yet, you know, the difference is we set the intention and we let it go, right? We give it up to.
Right. Yes.
Spirit,
right.
Know? give it up to the co-creation.
Right.
And that's the same with, where do I move? Where do I live? Who do I date? Like we can have an intention, and then we do need to give it up. And in that giving up, then, we return to the moment. Our sights are right here, where this is where we need to be, right? If we're not in the moment and we're looking 5 years down the road, like my dad's favorite question, what's your 5-year plan? And my favorite answer.
Why don't you call up Spirit and ask them, because they have it all figured out for you. They'll give you the 50-year plan, but I don't know anything.
Yeah. But if I'm looking 5 years down the road, then I might miss the turn. I might miss the sign,
exactly.
The side of the road that says, "Hey, pull over here. There's some delicious, homemade lemonade waiting for you."
Right, exactly.
Out on these beautiful treats that Spirit's trying to give you, and often you don't actually get to where you're going because you missed the darn turn back there. Right. So now it's taking you that much longer, even though you picked the most efficient route to get there, right? Now it's taking you twice as long. That 5-year plan just turned to a 10-year plan because you done missed the turn, right? So yeah, it is so important, this way of surrendering, of, people, it sounds like a spiritual bumper sticker of,
right.
Live in the moment.
Surrender, let it go. It's the spiritual bumper sticker.
Yeah.
I think you could make those. I would so put one on my car.
Well, 100%,
But it's why I don't plan questions when I do radio and when I do television, because if I've decided what things you're going to talk about, then I'm going to miss maybe some great stuff you're going to talk about because it's not in my schedule.
Right.
And that, for me, I'm not here to decide what people are going to see. I'm here to just open up the gateway and let you, my guest, bring in the magic that you have, and whatever people are supposed to see and hear is what they're supposed to see and hear. It's not for me to control the outcome, because like you said, then you miss the good stuff. Mm-hmm. And you have to be prepared and open for anything to happen at any time. That's a great experience you weren't expecting. But you have to leave that energetic door open, right? You can't close that door or those things won't happen. If you tell Spirit, because we do live in a free will environment, I only want X, Y, and Z to happen, then oftentimes that's what you get. But aren't you missing all the great stuff they might be throwing you that you don't even know about?
Right. I call it the dreaming mind, rather than the thinking mind, of that ability to receive, essentially to channel, right? People call it channeling, right? And, I had no plan. I had no notebook, nothing written down, no thoughts about what I wanted to deliver through today's podcast,
I like that. Good.
Well, you know me, that's how I roll with you.
Right. But sometimes guests get upset because they're like, no, I know exactly what you're going to ask me. And I'm like, we're just going to talk.
Yeah.
It's like if we were having coffee somewhere, you don't know what we're going to talk about. So just, we're just going to talk about you. So just be prepared to talk about you, I tell people. And that makes some people very uncomfortable, but I don't want people to prepare answers. I want things just to come as they come. And I some people, I think, still prepare a lot before they come, and that's okay. If that's their process, I'm not here to negate anybody's process. But I love that you've been doing you've been doing this with me long enough to know, you know what I mean? You just hold on to your ass and hope for the best. You don't plan.
It's the way I teach. I put that in quotes.
Me too.
It's the way I teach. It's the way I lead a retreat or a workshop or even a session with a client. Because it's not for me to decide, like you said. It's not for me to decide what a room full of people needs to hear. It's for that room full of people, right? It's for that moment that they each arrive to that moment.
Yes.
And they're asking with their need. And it's that call to need that I will be responding to, right?
Yes.
I'm delivering, I'm responding to a call of need. And if I already have a preconceived notion of what that need is going to be, then I'm not really being an authentic messenger, right?
Yes.
I'm actually messaging to these people. I'm simply messaging really to myself, me and my notebook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely true. Yeah. What do you think? What do you think? Especially since I mean, are we post-COVID? Whenever I say post-COVID, the question always comes up, are we post-COVID? But let's just say we're post-COVID-ish in this post-COVID-ish world. What are now the people are starting to sort of get back to whatever the new normal of their lives are? What are the sort of a lot of the questions that your clients are bringing to you? I mean, what are people's concerns? What are people looking for in their human involvement? I mean, where are people at now?
Yeah. Well, as always, it's a mixed bag. And yet the most common denominator is trauma. I think something about stillness, the stillness that COVID provided, the stillness, the isolation, and that sort of shook them up despite it being this stillness.
Yeah.
It picked us up. And what we were facing, the idea of what we were facing, it just really stirred up trauma for a lot of people. And so there's been this like real commitment to healing. And so, that's been really beautiful to feel that opening. And I also, the other common theme has been this looking for that connection again. Because despite the isolation of quarantine and everything that followed, there was a connection that we all felt with each other. Right?
Yeah.
The collective, like the whole world was going through this thing, right? At the same time. And that tuned us into each other in a way that many were not already aware of, that possibility. And we felt in a very different way, less alone than ever before.
Yeah.
And I feel that people are sort of mourning that and really seeking that and yet not quite aware, right, that that's what they're seeking, not quite aware that that's what they've lost. Because so quickly, and I'm sure you've noticed this, we've returned to normal, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've returned to
whatever normal is, definitely a new normal. I mean, I think it's still a lot more people at home. I think people have gotten used to being at home and all that comes with that comfort wise. And a lot of people are still spending more time at home and a lot of people are working from home more. So I think there is less hustle and bustle. I don't know that we'll ever go back to that same level of hustle and bustle, at least not maybe in our lifetime.
Yeah, I hope we don't. And I hope that, there's more of that. Just for the sake of the environment. I mean, we all remember what Mother Earth did just with a little break from us. Just a little break from us was all it required.
Wasn't that amazing that in a couple of weeks, the temperature of the Earth's core changed just because people weren't driving and factories weren't working, just us taking the pressure off the planet for a couple of weeks. Change the temperature of the Earth's core. I mean, if we ever wondered if global warming was real, COVID proved to us that we are the culprit of what stresses out this planet.
Yeah, and let that be remembered and hopefully acted upon. And hey, let's me. I love tying things together. How beautiful to tie that into your question of sort of. How do we take care of ourselves as healers? And do we find that we need more downtime, right?
Yes.
That like Mother Earth, we got to give her a break and not give, our Earth a break. We got to give this body a break, give this being, this vessel a break. And not just from the outside world, from all the traffic of the outside world, but from ourselves, right?
Yes,
From that drive, from the doing, even from the being, it's, I forget who it was. Ken Kesey, someone just, had that practice of not just the not doing, but the not being.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
And that's a thing, that a lot of people wouldn't even have a clue how do I not be? Wait, hold on. What does that even mean? What does that even mean? But it is to surrender, all the, I don't know, the words that are coming, like the gilded notions of self, right? Even down to your name, like your identity, just to let yourself be the void, be the empty space, be the nothingness, be the named one, the unclaimed one, and there, a lot of people hopefully access this place in meditation. And yet to bridge that, to be able to be that with your eyes open, to be able to be that walking in the world, just to give yourself that rest. I mean, what a rest, you know.
Absolutely. Well, and two, on a spiritual perspective and also on a three-dimensional human perspective, we spend half our lives trying to pay for where we live, and we're never in that space, right? We're always in the car, we're at work. When I call, like, the my phone carrier or the cable company, and I hear like a baby cry or a dog bark in the background, I get so excited. I'm like, oh my God, that person works from home. And I get so excited for them because they get to actually be in this space
Yeah.
and do their work from there. When we were kids, if you wanted to record an album, you had to go into a studio and you paid by the hour, and it was expensive, and everybody was trying to rush, and the engineer was rapping his knuckles on the console like, are you going to be done? And when the 90s came in the 2000s and people started doing home recordings, you could feel the energetic difference in the recordings of somebody being in their home space and being able to take their time and get it right. And
Mm.
it's so interesting to me that feeling, right, of now we can even work our day jobs from home and be able to be in our spot and be happier when we're working because we're near our kids and we're near our dogs and our cats and our birds. And I think that has changed the emotional and spiritual climate of the world a lot. You don't spend 3 hours a day in the car. And we've learned that it's possible that, guess what, people can do it. And luckily, corporations have realized they can save money on having to have an actual office they have to pay for. And anything that doesn't cost businesses money, they'll think, oh, yeah, this is great for people and for the environment, when the truth is it's really just about them saving money. But it's a win-win because people get to stay at home and do what they do from home. And I think that has changed a lot of the world because people are finally in this place that they spent so much of their lives fighting to keep alive and be able to stay in and actually be able to enjoy their lives more. I think COVID really taught us, if we were lucky enough to survive, and so many people weren't, and bless them all and their families and their friends, if we were lucky to stay alive, we need to start treasuring our life more and being thankful for every day we're here.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. For this earth, for each other, and to not forget that connection that we all found in that time, to
Yes.
the collect,
Yes.
you know.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I
So,
think that was the spiritual message behind COVID,
yeah.
was that for once in the history of I don't know how long, there was not a place on the earth that wasn't affected by it. So it wasn't like you could have empathy for somebody who was going through it, but it wasn't happening there. It was actually happening in your space and in everybody's space. And we were all fighting the same common enemy. And we were all trying to survive in the same way and all trying to protect ourselves and our loved ones in the same way. And so there was a global consciousness of this one human family fighting a disease, right? Which we need to think of ourselves more as one human family. And I think that really kickstarted. I hope it did. Every time I say that, somebody will say, oh, the world's gotten really bad again. And, I guess you can always look at it as it's gotten better or not. But I'm the eternal optimist. So I always look at better. And I do think we've learned a lot from that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And not just one human family, but, that all life, all creatures,
Absolutely.
family. And I really pray for that. I really pray for this earth, and I pray for that respite for her, that we can find that way to really live in balance with her, for
Yeah.
her. She is our mother and we are her children, and we're not taking
Yes.
very good care of our mother. That's the truth.
No, no, we're not. We are
Oh,
not. It's like we've put her in a home and we never visit. That's
yeah,
how we treat her. It's not good.
yeah.
And
I
I
mean,
guess I talk a lot about one human family because I think if you asked an elephant if they understood the concept of one elephant family, they would tell you absolutely. And I think if you ask a dolphin, they would tell you absolutely. And I think if you ask a cat, they would tell you absolutely. But people seem to have trouble with the idea that our species is a family, because we always think of ourselves in opposition with each other and not as a global tribe.
Yeah. Yeah. And yet, if we look at the biology, I forget the percentages, but we're like 99 or 98% identical genetically.
Yeah.
There's just like 1-2% that differentiates us from each other. That gives me my hair color, eye color, and you yours. And
right.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Besides that, we are genetically identical. Like we,
yes.
And so this idea of like, differences and what just in our physicality, why that should create a separation. I mean, it's really, you and I both know it goes back to that original heartbreak, that separation from the divine, right? Yeah. And as long as we feel ourselves separate from the divine, then we feel ourselves separate from everything and everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, even the war of the binary genders, right? I mean, if you look at a male or female body, I mean, it's almost exactly the same with a few tiny exceptions. But we act like it's this huge difference. But the difference comes in how we culturalize men and how we culturalize women, and how after generation, we tell men and women what they are supposed to be. If you put like a bunch of kids in a pen together and they're male, female, non-binary, all different things mixed up, and you don't tell them they're any different, those kids aren't going to grow up thinking they're any different. So it's, and all different ethnicities and all different, none of those kids are going to see any difference, except when somebody comes in and tells them, see how you're this and that person's that, and how different that is. And that's another thing I think we as people need to really work on. Because sometimes I do watch the Instagram videos and the TikTok videos. I won't lie. And I love the videos where like, a monkey rides a dog, or this raccoon is hugging a cat. And, these babies aren't thinking like, oh, I'm this and you're that. They're just thinking, oh, something else warm lives in my house that I like to snuggle with. And that's all they think about. It's not this separation of how different we all are, and what a big heartbreak and tragedy that is, and how we need to be fearful of the other. That's 100% a human concept. And it has, of course, has nothing to do with the divine. When people say things to me like, well, I'm a man and women, or I'm a woman and this man, I'm like, oh my goodness, do you think that honestly that spirit gives a crap about your genitalia or your gender? No, that's an earth concept. That's not something where like spirit comes to me and tells me, oh, men are all bad. I mean, it's not, there's no man or woman or any of that when you cross over. That's a here concept. And I think sometimes one of the hardest things for people is to keep human concepts here on the earth, earthbound concepts, money and gender and ethnicity and class and all of those things that have nothing to do with your spirituality, and how as a spiritual being, you have to kind of think of yourself as a little bit of everything and nothing at the same time, because that's what our souls are, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The common thread that connects us all is much more common and much more grand than we're willing to admit. And yet, okay, sure, there are differences, just like, the different species of trees in the forest. And yet, the beauty about differences is that it's different notes that create harmony, right? Yes. And it's different needs in that forest that creates symbiosis, right? Yes. So the differences are important. They're helpful. They serve. They're nurturing. They create harmony. And yet, as you said, the human concept of differences is automatically pitting them against each other. In Teotihuacan, in Mexico, the sort of version of amen is Ometeotl, which sort of translates like to the divine duality. So there's an acceptance and an embracing of the duality, that instead of fighting the duality, it's to the divine duality, to the acceptance of that. And in that acceptance, we find the equilibrium. In the acceptance, we find the harmony, you know, and that even polar opposites can be in union, right? Yin and yang.
Right. Of course.
Yeah. And so it's both, you know, it's that honoring the common thread, honoring the 99% of genetic, how identical we are, and then also embracing the differences and not letting differences scare us, but you know, maybe make us curious, maybe make us
and understand that we are nature and nurture, right? So when we've been culturalized to be a certain way, there are things that are different about us because that's how you've been culturalized.
Yes.
I'm an intersex person, which means that genetically I'm neutral, but I was raised as a woman and culturalized as a woman, and I love being a woman. And certainly there are very woman things about me because of how I was raised, and because for 33 years of my life I didn't know that I was intersex. So I that's okay. It's okay that we are also a reflection of our environment. We can change those things if they're things we don't like about us. Just because you're raised in a racist home, you don't have to become a racist. I mean, we can make changes, but we can also embrace that culturalization and that socialization if we want. But we can't get like so hung up on it that we believe that that's actually what runs the universe, because the universe is not run by how somebody was raised to be this or raised to be that or think about this. And I feel bad sometimes with my clients, who my clientele is, you know, mostly female, not all. I have a lot of great male clients, but mostly female. When somebody will say something in a relationship question and then they answer it with, but that's how men are, right? And I think, well, that's, you know, it's kind of not fair. First of all, it's really not true. Secondly, having dated men and women and loving them both, I can tell you that, you know what, there's stinkers in both piles, and there are things that are repeat patterns regardless of gender. You can't really say, and I think a lot of times heterosexual women sell themselves short with this fallback of, well, you know, that's how men are. No, that just means you're in the wrong place with maybe the wrong person, or maybe their behaviors you need to correct in you, but to just kind of fall back on that, I think leads to I think the division of the genders leads sometimes to some of the problems in relationships and in work relationships and in family relationships, that we sort of go into it with our fists up. It's like Republicans and Democrats, right? We go into the whole thing like this, like I'm fighting the enemy and they're so different from me. And, you know, when you're looking for trouble, sometimes that's what you find.
Yeah. And when, you know, that word Democrat and that word Republican, they don't even mean the same thing anymore. They don't represent the person anymore. And we're too busy, you know, holding up our, you know, our designated category and sticking to our side of the aisle, that we haven't even noticed that evolution taking place.
Right. Exactly.
And the same thing is true of gender. Like there's an evolution that's been happening here. And what's really beautiful, and this came for me just before COVID hit, where suddenly even the language of I and me, like it was like, no, I don't even know how to speak anymore. Like, can I say I identify as a we? I identify as an us? Like, how do I speak like this? Like we, us, you know, like, but it really was hitting me of this, it was very much the bee totem medicine was really coming for me. I think I had shared it with you at that time with these bees in my neighborhood, and they were really, really gifting me this beautiful medicine of the connectivity that we needed to return to, and that inevitably we sort of did during COVID.
Yes, it forced us to. Sometimes with human beings, we have to be forced into our change.
Yes, yeah, or drug. And yeah, so I'm noticing that now a lot of my students are really coming to me with this, you know, I don't know what to do with this language of masculine and feminine energy, right? Like we use this language not to describe other people, we use it to describe energies within ourselves. And, you know, we've all been sort of feeling like, yeah, let's find a different way. Let's drop that, because that time is done to even delineate that, you know, the desire to protect is a masculine quality.
Right.
The desire to nurture is a feminine quality. You know, surrender is feminine, reason is masculine, logic is masculine. Like, no, let's start surrendering even these tags that we're putting. They were a great way to dive into a conversation that was very necessary on the planet, I feel, to start bringing more awareness to the equilibrium within ourselves and to our relationship with ourselves, right? I know one of your favorite expressions or teachings is that the most important relationship that you have is the one with yourself, right?
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
from it, all other relationships are born, are formed, right? And so, yeah, I think it was great to really bring people into a deeper relationship with themselves, almost a romantic relationship with themselves. Like
Which
there
you
is,
should have. Yes, you should definitely. Dating you is a wonderful way to grow.
oh yeah, I mean, it might spoil you against everybody else.
That's for sure. It does.
Right?
Well, unless you're a lousy partner to yourself, which maybe some people are. But
Yes.
in my case, I've always felt it was one of the hottest relationships I ever had.
Oh yeah, I'm the best lover. I don't know. Good luck, guys. It's a high bar for you.
Sure, exactly. Well, and when you talk about masculine and feminine, I mean, we all possess a mixture of divine masculine, divine feminine within us, right? And
Yeah.
we have to remember that that mixture of those things do not necessarily make us male or female or a man or a woman. We all have that. We're all that mixture. And some people are more a 50-50 mixture, and some people are more 2080. And there's no reason for, remember that test that you could take on Facebook that was like, what is your level of divine masculine, divine feminine?
Yeah.
I took it. I came out more divine feminine than both of my straight best female friends. So it has nothing to do with your sexuality. It's
Yeah.
just the makeup inside of you. And we're lucky that we live in a world now where you're allowed to express on the outside both of those things within you and not be worried that the world is going to tell you you're not this enough or you're too much of this. But still, there is that mixture, and we need to embrace both. And if you think the other gender is your enemy, then it's very hard to embrace those things within you.
Right. And two things. Generally, if you think that other gender is the enemy, then what's going on inside of you, right? Like what part of you has been abandoned or
Right.
has abandoned you,
Right.
I I do a lot of trauma healing work, and mostly because I walk through life with my own trauma.
Sure.
I was doing this practice that I discovered in my own healing called the Walk in Two Worlds. And, it was about sort of identifying the guardian self and the trauma self. So I was calling my trauma self the little girl. And I was having this very deep connection and relationship with her and very healing. And so one day, all of a sudden, I realized, I was like, wait a minute. The trauma self is not only feminine, right? Just like me, the trauma self also has a feminine and a masculine.
Right.
And when I took a look at that, and it was like, oh, where's the little boy? And where was the little boy in this, in those moments? And there was a piece of that internal masculine in me that I had shoved in the closet. I really thought that I had embraced the masculine. I really, I grew up with 3 brothers. I love my dad. I love men. And I thought I had embraced the inner masculine inside of me growing up as a tomboy, right?
Right.
And yet really what had happened, and I saw this, was that it was the feminine masquerading as the masculine inside of me.
Yeah, that'll happen. Yeah.
It had taken over. Like, you weren't there to protect me, so I got it from here. So my little boy was like shoved way in the back of a closet somewhere, just waiting for his chance to take care of me. And when I allowed that presence to return and allowed the feminine to just like surrender, right? And here we are using masculine and feminine, but really it's just easy to converse, right?
but we do have those parts inside of us. I mean, I think that's very real, our divine masculine and our divine feminine.
Yeah, I agree. And so, anyway, it was just so powerful for me to take that little boy and allow him to take care of me, allow him to grow up, allow my feminine to have a rest, because I made myself sick. I made my body sick with that feminine trying to play that role and really never getting that rest, right?
Yeah.
Never getting that rest, never getting that sense of a partnership, right?
Right.
Yeah.
The fluidity of everything together, so everything becomes a circle.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I think when we talk about divine masculine, divine feminine, right, we're talking about the divine version of masculinity and the divine version of femininity. So it's not like, your divine masculine, punches people in the face and just sits around all day scratching their balls, and the divine feminine's bitchy. I mean, it's not like that. Those are like what we think of as negative earthbound stereotypes of male and female. That's your divine stuff, is all the really good qualities of both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That you carry. And hopefully as a human, you adopt and accept those good qualities so you can become the reflection of those things and get out of some of the earthbound things that we get stuck in, right?
Right. Yeah. And that, you were talking about the test on Facebook, the 80-20, the 50-50, whatever, whatever balance, because for you, that's your balance, right? And so whatever you might have discovered in that test, it's still an evolution, right?
Yeah,
it's like astrology, right? I know you love it.
Yeah.
That's what was going on when you came in, and that gets to evolve too,
Yes.
That gets to evolve. However you were encultured, masculine, feminine, however you embraced whatever little boys you were shoving in the closet, like
yes, yeah,
evolve, and either way, me, I love to invite people to live in the mirror room, instead of pointing outside of like, why is the world this way? Why are men this way? Why are my relationships this way? Live in the mirror room. It's just you in here. What are you putting in front of this mirror, right? I look at that. The men in my life, they're all beautiful. I love them all. And yet I constantly found myself sort of being the doer, being the one to make it happen, being both the feminine and the masculine. And that was exactly what was happening inside of me, without my awareness. I was playing both roles. The feminine was playing both roles, right?
Yeah.
So this is what we have to just get so honest with ourselves, and it may sound like a drag, but it really isn't. It's empowering.
It's actually beautiful to embrace everything that you are. I mean, it's really it's a wonderful thing. It's there anyhow. It just feels good not to be hiding it. Not to be pretending like it's not there, or that it's something you have to be embarrassed about. I guess because, my father was very inactive, right? So he was in the house, but he was turned off. So he was like a car that sits in the garage and never runs. So my mother, taught me to cook, and also taught me to kick a soccer ball, and taught me to pick out a prom dress, and also taught me how to drive. And so I saw her do the technical masculine roles and the feminine roles. So I think it was so much easier for me to accept all of that in myself, because she had to show me both of her divine masculine, her divine feminine all the time, because she was all I had. So it seems so natural to me that one person can do both things, and that you can enjoy both things. I mean, I love like delicate feminine things, and I love cars. Like, I'll talk about cars when there's a party and all the girls are talking about whatever. I'm with the guys talking about cars because I love cars. But you know what? I also love super feminine things, and I live in a pink and purple house. And it's because I saw that in my mother, that she was so feminine, but at the same time, when she had to be, she would do everything that she had to do, and she was good at it. I love that. And I think that we would all be so much happier if we would just give ourselves a break and go into a relationship thinking, you know what? obviously this is a person who's not ready to be in a relationship with me, and not, well, that's how men are. Because if that's your attitude, you're never going to find the right guy,
Right.
because you're in the back of your mind, it's always going to go back to, well, and it's just, I think that sometimes we as people, our earthbound selves, put blocks in front of us that don't need to be there, that inevitably block our happiness, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, I think, people need to be more fluid, right? This is part of the dialogue, right? Being fluid, gender fluid, but also just more identity fluid,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's really where I feel that we're harming ourselves, is getting so fixated and stuck in a certain way, in a certain identity, that try on different versions of yourself.
Yes.
When I was younger, like from age 3 all the way through, the beginning of college, I was in theater. And I think that served me. Like, that was my first spiritual path, because I
Sure.
was trying on
Mine
different
too.
of myself. I was expressing emotions that maybe weren't okay for Rebecca to express, but for Rebecca playing a character, okay, yeah, I can get pissed, right?
Yeah.
And let out that anger that the other Rebecca, the quote unquote real Rebecca, wouldn't dare, right? So
Yes.
I think it's important that we try on different versions of ourselves. When I was, trying to break the tomboy thing, which people might go, well, why bother break that? Well, for me, I'm all about, not being so attached to my gender, really letting go of
Sure.
the skin I'm in, right? And so I really wanted to get free from that tomboy, and I wanted to, be okay with being a woman, because that was a big thing for me. I looked at my beauty as a curse. It's sort of what brought a lot of the sexual trauma into my life, so I thought. And and it terrified me. But what did I do? I borrowed a friend's slinky black dress, high heel shoes, did the makeup, and I went out to dinner by myself, right? Because that's the bigger challenge, right? By myself, with no one to hide behind, and to my favorite restaurant too, so where people know me. And I went and I ate dinner.
Good for you.
Just like walking down the street, sitting there at the table, feeling the other women's eyes on me, scolding me, scolding my beauty, feeling the men desiring me. So uncomfortable. And yet by doing that, I got to work through all those little things, all those places in me that was actually giving power to any of that bullshit. Because that's all it is, right? It's bullshit. These other perceptions, right? That we give our power to. And so I just feel that it's so important that we become identity fluid.
Yes. I
And-
agree.
and-
I agree 100%. And with that, we're totally out of time. We need to make a date for you to come back, and we'll do this again soon, because there's so much more to talk about.
Yeah.
Where can people find you everywhere, my friend?
Well, RebeccaHaywood.com and Nawal Heart on Instagram. And if you're interested in joining me in Teotihuacan, Mexico, go check out some sacred sites and pyramids. I'm going next week, and I got a couple of slots open. So hit me up.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I love that. Thank you for being here. Thank you to Rebecca Haywood, my friend. Thank you to KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. I'm Sheena Metal, and you can find me at SheenaMetalSpiritual.com and everywhere on social media at Sheena Metal. And if you want to send me a text message and stay in touch and say hi, 818-437-0886. It's my private cell, and nobody will talk to you but me. Till I see you next time, seek peace, live in love, lead with kindness, embrace unity, always work to raise your vibration, and most importantly, know that you are loved and you are loved, and you're loved by me. This is the Sheena Metal Experience every Friday at 3 o'clock Pacific time, only on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. I'm Sheena Metal. I hope you have a good week. Stay lovely.